Welcome to the InnerVerse. Fear is an illusion.
Welcome to the One Within All to the InnerVerse podcast. I'm your host, coming at you from the height of the sun's glory and our annual peak of consciousness following the summer solstice. It's Cancer season, the ultimate sign of nurture and comfort. And as anyone who has purposefully sought to grow and improve in life can tell you, sometimes we have to embrace the uncomfortable to instigate our development. Whether it's lifting weights, sitting quietly in meditation, or reading a difficult book, the reality of life is that we must seek ways to challenge ourselves in order to make progress in our human experience. In today's world where technology and connection has made our day-to-day easier than perhaps it's ever been for mankind, it is easy to forget the feeling and intensity of maximum effort, unless we're going out of our way to seek out more demanding behaviors. Thus, today we'll be talking about one of life's most uncomfortable experiences imaginable, but in a good way, the creation of new life. It's no secret that my wife and I have our first baby on the way, and in the spirit of preparing and sharing the best practices for holistic parenting, it's a perfect time to catch up with the most mystical mama I know, the fantastic female half of Family Fungi herself, Elise Frosch. Fresh off her successful home birth of baby number 3, Elise contacted me about coming on to tell us the tips and tricks to pregnancy, delivery, and postpartum that in her wise opinion ought to be the birthright of all men and women, passed down folklore style from parent to child. But in the absence of such a transmission tradition in most of our lives, this badass birth keeper and self-taught doula extraordinaire has offered to share the secrets of successful self-generation, providing a window into her experience that most women in her profession are more likely to put behind an expensive paywall. Now, I'm not knocking the teachers out there who ask for compensation in trade for their childbearing expertise. You got to do it. But I do agree that this is the sort of thing that would make the world a better place if it was common knowledge. And in the spirit of that, we're going to keep this whole episode free to the public. But if you appreciate the content, you're more than welcome to support InnerVerse and or Family Fungi in return for this offering. And we give thanks to all our shared clients and customers who help us support our families. And for the dudes out there who might be about to tune out from all this lady stuff, keep in mind that the techniques for transcending the discomforts of childbirth are more than applicable to more masculine activities that might be on the difficult side. And for all you future and current fathers out there, it'd behoove y'all to know how to best support your women folk in this most important moment of their lives. So make a mental post-it note of this timeless episode to revisit in the future when needed. Check the show notes for all the ways you can support Elise and James at Family Fungi or Jennifer and me at InnerVerse. And with that, let's dive into this sure-to-be inspiring journey of knowledge with the metaphysical matron of mycelium and a psychedelic shower of the woman's way, Elise Frosch. Welcome back to InnerVerse, and thanks for coming on.
Oh, you're so great. Wow, this is so exciting. Yeah, I'm very grateful that this will be public for all to share with. So that's really gracious of you, Chance. Thank you.
It just feels right. And I wanted to ask you first, as we're starting out, what's new at Family Fungi? There might be people around who have not heard you or James on the show before or other podcasts. So maybe introduce what y'all do and what might be new.
Yeah, so my husband and I, we run Family Fungi. FamilyFungi.net is our website. And we sit with the mushroom 25/8. We live with them and we steward them, we grow them. So we make teas and tinctures and we sell fresh mushrooms at our local markets. And we've got lots of new stuff on our website. We've been really delving into herbalism and teas. So we have a lovely woman that lives on the farm with us, Avalon, and she's going to come help me later, demonstrate some things. But she's an absolute blessing. And so she's been helping us really grow our business and our family. Like she helped me all throughout my prenatal postpartum journey and during the birth. So with the extra hands, because now we have more hands that do their best to help, we've been able to get more products out, and James has been able to really focus on making more tinctures and just some really cool stuff coming out. There's the teas are on the website and some of the tinctures are, but then we have some stuff that's really cooking behind the scenes that we're excited about.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys have got really good products. I've always enjoyed things that I've bought from y'all or you've shared generously. And, the next question I wanted you to speak on would just be, why is this subject important to you? How does it relate to who you see yourself as and your, purpose in life?
Well, whenever I got pregnant with our first Ja, I didn't have anyone around me that had had a birth at home or had had a natural birth in the hospital. None of that. And so I'm pretty sure I talked about this on our first podcast together, but it just felt wrong going to a hospital. There was a natural birthing center about 45 minutes away from where we lived. And I went there and I had like 3 appointments. And on my 3rd appointment, I just started crying. And the licensed resident midwife there, she was like, "Oh, you're just pregnant. You're crying because you're pregnant." And I was like, "No, I'm crying because I don't want to be here. This isn't right. I can do this on my own." And prior to this, probably 2 years prior to this, I had gone to a doula training, and all of the women there, except for one, had home births, and the one that didn't have a home birth had a very traumatic experience at a hospital. And so my first introduction to birth was through these women that had amazing home births. And my family really never talked about birth. I'm the youngest, so I never saw my mom pregnant. And I saw other people in my life pregnant, but it wasn't that big of a deal. You just went to the hospital and went to your appointments, and that was that. So having those women tell me these stories lit a fire under me that I didn't realize was there until I got pregnant. And so I didn't want to go to the hospital. And I was telling my husband, I was like, I just don't, and you're so emotional. So most of the time I was crying. It's your first time having these hormones coursing through your body. And sometimes you just don't really know what to expect from it, or there's no foundation for it really, in your own mind. And so it almost comes as a surprise whenever these emotions bubble up. And there are lots of stories that you hear in popular media about that. So I told him, I was like, I want to have a home birth, but I know my family's not going to like it. And it's just going to be so hard to convince them. And he was like, well, congratulations. This is your first initiation. Do you think you're the first mom that's wanted to home birth and their family was mad at them? And I was like, no, no, I'm not. I know I'm not. And so I had to really talk to my family about it. And one of my sisters is a NICU nurse. And so she sees the worst possible things that can happen. So she already was very upset, and you don't know the horrors that could happen. And so it was just a lot building up. But I told my family I was going to do it anyways, because I would have been more miserable giving birth in a hospital than at home. And I had also, my first doula client had a home birth, and it was a home birth with a licensed midwife. The midwife didn't show up till the baby was there already. And seeing her be able to like, can you go grab me a pillow from downstairs? Or I just want to be in my bedroom. I just want to take a shower in my own shower. There's some snacks. Can you go get me this? She took a shower. She didn't want her hair wet. So she was like, my blow dryer's right there. Will you blow dry my hair? And just seeing how nice it is to be comfortable in your own home really allowed me to see how beautiful birth can be. And it doesn't have to be this sterile lights, random people, because whenever you're in a hospital, they're still on shift work. So you have one nurse and you might really like that one nurse, but then her shift's over. So then you have another nurse, and you're constantly meeting new energies. And even though you're having a baby, so you're not entertaining, you still have to entertain all of the energetic baggage that comes in with new people constantly cycling in and out. And you can have your birth plan and you can have your rules, but the hospital still has their rules, and there's not much you can do about that unless you want to like fight for your right to have a baby. But I think it can be so much more peaceful than that. And so having my first child at home and feeling all of that joy and like, I just want to be like, oh, like feeling that of you're at home and you just did the thing and nothing can stop you. And I always imagine myself after I give birth to be like this weeping, like, oh, I did it. Oh God, I love you so much. But I'm always like, I did it. Like, yes. Oh my gosh. I'm always so hyped about it because it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm a crier, but after I have a baby, I'm just so stoked on life and I'm so high that no tears even come. I'm just ready. And so, yeah, it really is my passion. Talking with women about it, because not many people know. I just spoke with a woman a few weeks ago and I told her about free birth, and she didn't even know what free birthing was. And in my mind, I was like, what? You don't know what this is? It's so not common. I don't know anyone here that's free birthed around me, but I see it a lot on social media, the women that I had followed, because that's what I surround myself with is positive birth stories. And so, yeah, just having that encounter of someone that didn't even know what free birth was, I was like, oh, we got to get this out, because if you don't know, it's not even an option for you. Like if you don't know that it's possible to not go into the hospital, if you don't know that it's possible to not have a midwife, if you don't know that it's possible to just do it at home with your husband, then it won't even be an idea inside of your mind. And whenever I speak about birth and the different ways you can do it, no way in my mind is wrong. I was just speaking to a woman the other day who had a hospital birth, and I was like, yeah, she's like, oh, where'd you give birth? I was like, right upstairs at home. Like, oh, who's your midwife? I didn't have a midwife. She's like, oh. I was like, yeah, but that's what I'm comfortable with. You're comfortable being in a hospital. So if you being comfortable in a hospital would try and birth at home, it would be such a traumatic experience. And then if me being comfortable birthing at home were to try and birth in a hospital, it would be a very traumatic experience. So and that's the thing about birth, is that you have to be the most comfortable that you can be. If there's anyone in your field that makes you uncomfortable, you need to tell them that they can't be there. And these little, it's the smallest thing.
And your husband needs to stand up and be like, you can't be here. You know,
Yes.
you shouldn't have to fight for that. That's like our job.
Yes, but what I'm speaking of is like before birth. And so these are like the small kind of, I call them initiations, like these small initiations that you come into during your pregnancy to allow you to like stand strong within yourself and within your core so that you're unwavering whenever it comes to giving birth. And yes, your husband, and you should be talking about this openly with your husband so that you are of one mind. And that way, if someone comes in that he knows you don't like or he knows isn't the right thing, then he will then be your advocate because you are not here whenever you're having a baby. You cannot speak. You sure can try. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's cool that, I mean, it probably depends on where you're at, but, you know, I think hospitals are more and more willing, because of all the business they're losing, to accommodate the style of birth to a degree that someone might want to have in the hospital. Like my sister gave birth there and did it without without interventions. It was like a natural birth, but just at the hospital. And that was what was comfortable for her. And it went really well. Everything was great. There is still, like, especially the older generation, you talk about home birth or natural birth, and they tend to jump towards the worst story they ever heard. And that's always the first thing they repeat to you when you say that that's what you're going to do. But, you know, we're ready to take the mantle of authority at this point from the older generations that might be a bit stuck in their ways. It's not their time to be having babies anymore. It's our time, and people younger than us. So, you know, what our plan is, like me and Jen, is we found a really cool birth center. So there's like a birth team there, midwife, doulas, and some registered nurses, but it's exactly a home birth experience, but it's just in someone else's home. So they also will, like, you know, kind of clean up after you and be very supportive and all that. So that's like our midway point. That's what Jennifer's comfortable with. I think it sounds awesome. The midwife that we work with over there is super cool. She's like into the podcast now. So we're all on the same wavelength, which is great. But maybe we should bounce around to talking about some of the pregnancy stuff that you wanted to get into, like prenatal diet and exercise and things like that.
Yeah, I have lots of stuff here today. I've got lots of props. So this book, it's called Nourishing Traditions by Sally Morell Fallon. And it's based on the Weston A. Price diet, which the way they talk about their diet is, okay, it was started by this doctor, Weston A. Price, and he went around to all of these indigenous cultures all over the world and was wondering why their teeth are so straight and their jaws are so nice and why they're so fit and what's going on here, what's happening in the West. And what he found is that it's the diet, it's traditional diets. And so Weston A. Price calls their diet an all-inclusive diet. So it's not exclusive. It's not like you can't eat certain things. It's inclusive. So it just teaches you how to eat. It teaches you how to eat because people really don't know. They don't know you have to soak your grains. They don't know you should soak your breads and your beans, and that you should eat organ meats, or how do you, or if you do know it, how do you even cook it? So the beginning of the book is information on vitamins and minerals and grains and legumes. It's just information. And the latter half of the book are recipes. And so that's a great basis for women to start because you need fats. Okay. You need healthy fats, you need good meats, you need protein, you need cholesterol, you need all of these building blocks. And a prenatal vitamin is great. I did a prenatal vitamin for my first two because that's what was in my budget. And I got something called Thorne, THORNE. That was the prenatal vitamin that I took. And it's all bioavailable minerals and vitamins. And then for my last pregnancy, I did organ capsules. And they were from animals that we had butchered. So I had like livers and hearts and kidneys and gallbladder. I had like literally every organ, brains. I had every organ you can imagine. And my friend freeze dried them for me. She has a little freeze dryer, and I powdered them up and encapsulated them. And so that's what I took. And there's also a supplement called Ancestral Supplements, and they sell organ capsules. They sell a mixed capsule, and then they also sell just a thyroid, just heart. Then they do fish oil and stuff like that. And a big thing about your diet while you're pregnant and preconception is that there's a lot of ideas around food that's healthy for the baby and the mother. And a lot of people say, like, stay away from sushi or stay away from different types of meats, or you don't want to eat liver. Deli meats, yeah. And you don't want to eat liver because it's too much iron in it. You don't want to eat salami because that one's because of nitrates and stuff, like the deli meats and the cured meats. But you can get them nitrate, sulfate free. And you want to eat the organs, you want to eat the meats, you want to eat the grains and the sourdough breads. All of this stuff is so good for you. It's very nourishing to your soul. And a lot of people think that the big one's sushi. That's just one I always go to because they're like, oh, I can't wait. That's going to be my first meal after I have a baby. And I'm like, do women in Asia not eat fish during their whole pregnancy? That just seems like a big fat no. That's not true. And fish is such a great source of fatty acids and omegas that I think it's one of the things that you really should eat, especially fatty salmon, like salmon belly, and like fish eggs and roe, if you can eat that.
How much of it is based on scary germs? Germs.
It's scary germs, and it's also mercury.
Oh, yeah. Well, mercury is a thing.
Mercury is a thing. But if you're eating so much fish that you get mercury poisoning, that's a lot. And I don't think that anyone's budget can really afford that much fish. Sushi's kind of expensive. So, yeah. And so you have your diet, and then you have exercise.
Well, I want to comment on the diet side too. I mean, it's a sample size of one, but I do know a vegan mother just had a baby and was talking about her pregnancy. I don't know if she'd put two and two together. You know how it is. You don't necessarily want to like poke the sore spot of the vegan question because it can be a kind of a religious ideology for people. And I respect your decision and all that. I understand the reason why you would do it. But when she was describing her pregnancy, it was like, I've never heard of somebody being that ill while pregnant consistently to the point where it was like scaring her family. They thought she was dying and all that. And I figured it must be like, because the baby was beautiful, looked like a perfect, excellent baby. And wonder, was it just her body using itself to nourish the baby instead of, because it wasn't getting the meat and whatnot. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's something to keep in mind. Like if you're really attached to a meatless diet, is it worth the potential of all the difficulty you might go through in pregnancy. You also might want to look up pictures of the placenta of a vegan mother versus a well-nourished mother, and all that stuff should be in your mind. You might put that diet on pause just for a little while. You're not undoing all of the perceived help you've provided to creatures with a face by temporarily doing what nature would probably have intended you to do. I just want to put that out there for people.
Yeah, and I actually had a friend that was vegan for 10 years, and she had a beautiful pregnancy, great, amazing baby. But then it wasn't until her postpartum time that her being vegan really took a toll on her body, because then you're breastfeeding and your body's taking the vitamins and mineral, just like it's synthesizing from you while you're pregnant. It does the same thing while you're breastfeeding. And so if you're not nourishing yourself while you're breastfeeding, and then it's just taking it from your body, she ended up getting really sick afterwards and was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, and immediately started eating meat and got nourishing traditions, and completely turned her life around, because she was having dizzy spells and fainting, and and she was like a fruitarian at one point. It was a lot so that's what your body does while you're pregnant. It takes everything that you consume and filters it through the placenta and then gives it to the baby. And so a lot of people are like, oh, eat whatever you want. Eat the fried chicken, eat whatever. You just keep eating. And I agree with eat whatever you want, but make it very good for you. So I fry chicken all the time, but I do it in lard. I'll make sweet things, but it's all organic. It's nothing that I know is going to inflame me or make me feel sluggish. Because if that's happening, then there's something wrong with your digestion and your body trying to metabolize all of this food. So really take a look at what you want and try and figure out how you can make it yourself, or how you can make it the best thing for you. Like, you want a hamburger. Great. I love hamburgers. But maybe try and get grass-fed meat. If you can't afford grass-fed meat, get organic. Go to your farmer's market. That's probably the best thing that you could do, is go to your farmer's market. And so Weston A. Price, if you go on their website, westonaprice.org, they have local chapters. So you can find a chapter leader in your state somewhere around you. I'm the local chapter leader of Tangipahoa Parish, which is where we live. And there's 4 or 5 in Louisiana. And so there's chapter leaders all around the world, I want to say. And they will have, can I get your food resource list? And they will have a list of farms around you, or farms, restaurants, grocery stores where you can buy the highest quality food. If raw milk is illegal in your state, you can get a list of PMAs. It's the best thing ever. And then they'll have events of people that eat this food, that believe in this way of thinking, because Weston A. Price isn't just focused on food. A big focus is food. A big focus is raw milk. And then another big focus is some would say conspiracy driven. So they're very much against a lot of the things that have come around within the past 5-6 years. And they're outspoken about it, and they lobby against the government, I guess you could say, to allow for raw milk to be legal for everyone, to get towers out of cities, to talk about things that happened a couple years ago.
Love that that you're pointing out that even though a lot of states might have laws against buying and selling raw milk, that's the public commerce system. But through private membership associations, you have all rights reserved to do whatever you wish. So they exist. More and more people are hip to that. That's a really cool side tangent. But, just for the sake of time, let's get into exercise while pregnant. I think that's a good thing to talk about.
Yes, it's a very good thing to talk about because a lot of the times when you're pregnant, you're very low on energy. It's really just the first trimester that you feel low on energy. Your body's doing a lot, but even being able to go outside and take a walk or do a couple squats here and there. I think being pregnant can also be seen as I get to do nothing for 9 months because I'm growing a baby. It's like I'm running a marathon every single day of my life for 9 months, which is it's true. It can be very taxing and you need lots of naps and you need lots of food and you should be cared for and take baths and get your feet rubbed and all that. I love it. And you should also not be a lazy bum and get your body moving. And I'm not going to be like, you need to get your body moving because you're about to go on the craziest, hardest adventure of your life. You're going to push a baby out for 36 hours. That's not really it. It's just that you should do your body the service of keeping it if you don't use it, you'll lose it. You're not going to lose it, but it'll just be harder. And I really felt this with my last pregnancy because we actually just got an exercise, a whole exercise workout equipment thing. It's great. I'm loving it. But before that, we were just carrying buckets of water around the farm, carrying sacks of feed, not even doing it to stay fit, but just doing it because that's what we had to do. But through not working out, I felt pain in my abdomen. And with my first, I worked out. I actually went to the gym throughout my pregnancy, and I wasn't consistent. I wasn't trying to make gains. I was just trying to not feel lazy. And with this last pregnancy, I actually walked a lot. And moving my body helped with water retention in my legs because my feet started to swell towards the end. And I started to get leg cramps. And so your body, women's body have never been as big as they've been while they're pregnant. You have your body weight and then you gain weight while you're pregnant because you're building a baby. You have double or triple the amount of blood volume in your system. Your body is just working very hard and putting on calories for you and for your child. And so doing it the service of okay, I'm going to move you now. You're doing a lot, even just dancing, just moving yourself can really help your body. And yes, also prepare you for birth. Because if you're not using your legs and doing squats here, doing some squats, if you can lift weights, the thing is that don't really do anything that you're I've never squatted 200 pounds, but I'm going to do it today. That's not what I'm talking about.
That's what I was going to ask. Maybe with the question of exercise, is it more like a list of do nots rather than a list of do's?
Do not do anything you weren't doing before. That's really the big thing. I've seen women power lift throughout their whole pregnancy, and it's crazy. I'm not a power lifter. But,
probably not going to be doing a lot of sit-ups either. Just, not in the third trimester.
Yeah, no. But there's actually a page on Instagram called BirthFit, and they specialize in helping women stay active throughout their pregnancy and postpartum time. So if you're not doing anything, not walking, and your legs feel fatigued, but you're still not trying to strengthen them in any way, then say birth comes and for some reason only a squat feels good for you. Your legs will probably tire out during that time. And so keeping your strength up, I feel, is very important, just so you can hold yourself well. Because like I said, your body has never been as big as it is when you're pregnant. And so giving your muscles some contraction, something to work with, really, really helps whenever you're in labor. Because you don't really know what's going to feel good until you're in it. You could be, for my first pregnancy, I was like, James, I want you to do all these like moves for like compression. Like, let's practice. Let's practice doing these different moves, which I'll show later. And we practiced. And then birth came and he like goes to touch me. And I was like, don't touch me. I don't want you to touch me. He like put his hand on my shoulder. I was like, please don't touch me. I just really wanted to be alone during that time.
So I've already heard from Jen, like what's allowed and what's not allowed in terms of physical contact when she's in labor. She's like, do it like this. Do not do it like this. Good to have those boundaries laid out. And on the prepping for birth side, is there more to say about, I guess the thing I wanted to ask about is if there's exercises that, or stretches or something that women can do for like abdominal cramping. That's something I've observed my wife when she's expanding. And if you go look up, like, this blew my mind. She showed me what the female uterus looks like in a non-pregnant woman and then what it's like by the third trimester. And it's basically, you've just inflated this huge balloon inside yourself. It's really wild how the organs are shifting around and everything. So in that, it's pretty common, I'm sure, that the abdominal muscles are going to, if you turn a certain way or you're rolling over, that there might be like a muscle spasm or cramp that can occur. Is there anything that helps with that? Is it magnesium? Is it certain movements?
Yeah, you can do magnesium's great. You can do topical magnesium, taking magnesium. Another thing is like taking a deep breath in and inhaling into your belly. And then as you exhale, really tightening your core. And so your belly will the baby will come inside of you and then it'll come out as you breathe in and exhale. I can take her. You about to beat the baby. So yeah, that I actually found a lot of relief with cannabis oil and rubbing cannabis oil on me while I was pregnant, because I would get muscle spasms and it would wake me up, the muscle spasms that I would have. And I didn't really know what to do. We had a whole jar of cannabis oil, so I'd rub myself down with cannabis oil, and that helps.
Oh my goodness. This is a pretty amazing first for me as a podcast host. Never seen a breastfeeding guest before, but it's awesome. It's really cool.
It's very convenient. I don't have to bring bottles anywhere, so it's bottle right there. So yeah, the inhale and the exhale is really good. That helps a lot. And cat-cow, and then just you can do yoga throughout your pregnancy. You can do assisted planks on your knees. You don't crunches and stuff like that kind of splay the abdominals out, even though you're contracting them, but just the movement of them. Rather, if you do planks or you just brace your core throughout the day and practice bringing everything in, and you can bring it in and let it out and do it rhythmically with your breath. And then you can do the same thing with your pelvic floor. And I find breathwork to be very helpful. So practicing breathing through your body, if I'm sure that makes sense to a lot of the people watching here.
But maybe explain it though for sort of a step-by-step.
Yeah, so you take a breath in and you can imagine your breath expanding all of these parts. So if you wanted to, it can expand your heart. It can expand your abdominals. It can go into your womb. It can go into your pelvic floor. And when you close your eyes and imagine it, you can sense and see in different ways these parts where your breath is going. So the breath is the spirit. And allowing that to go through your body. And there's a practice that you can do with your husband while you're in labor, and you can practice it before you go into labor, where he will put his hand on different parts of your body and you breathe into wherever the hand is. And I find this to be very helpful if you see your wife while she's in labor, or if you're a doula or a midwife or someone, and you find that a woman is holding tension, and you can just put your hand there and you can breathe life into these parts of her as well. And so say the breath is getting stuck in the top of the chest where she's just like, and it's the kind, it creates a sense of fear. You can bring the hand down on the back more, and maybe it's in the mid back. You can bring it down to the lower back and just remind her that she can create more space within. Because what the uterus does whenever it's contracting and going into labor, when these surges come, is that it's not only contracting like up this way, it's also going this way, and it's spiraling as well. So you have all of these movements around your womb working with your baby to help you and your child descend into the world. And so imagine your breath as like a spiraling flower going through your body. That can help you as well. And all of these are great to practice before birth. That way it's kind of like muscle memory. And you and your husband both can kind of remember these things. And maybe you have different words, like, it sounds so corny, but like, you are a flower. And then it might even make her laugh. And then be like, oh yeah, okay, I can breathe life like down into me. I can breathe into my roots and blossom up.
I love it. I'm here for the things to practice before the big show. Definitely. Oh, we got a sweetie here. What's her name?
Solvi. It took us a while to figure out a name. Do you want to say hi to Mr. Chance? Hello, everybody.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
She is. She was like, it was so crazy. I had like, hold on, let me get her situated and then I will tell this story. It's like, I have 2 boys and I just accepted I was going to be a boy mom forever. And my pregnancy was difficult in a way because I had to set boundaries. I had never realized that I hadn't set boundaries that hard in my life. So I had to like set boundaries with myself and with other people. And it was a lot of transformation. It was also my Saturn's return. So that had a large part of it as well. And with my second, I didn't know my due date. So I was like, I'm due around about, I don't know, spring. That's what I would say. I'm due around spring. And with her, I had calculated my due date. And so my due date was March 20th. And I thought I was going to go early. March 20th came. March 20th went. March 30th came. March 30th went. April Fool's came. April Fool's went. My second's birthday, April 10th, came and went. And I was like, what the heck is going on right now? I am over 44 weeks pregnant. If I were to have a midwife, they would draw me from their care. If I were to be in a hospital, they would induce me. And And it was, I just accepted the fact that I was going to be pregnant forever. I was like, this is it. I guess having my little business called The Great Mother, Agora, The Great Mother, I'm just going to be the great mother forever and be pregnant. And that's how it's going to be. And then I went into labor. Well, I like woke up in the middle of the night, felt like I had to pee. Whenever you're super pregnant, and you have to pee, you get cramps. So I went and peed. It was 4 a.m. and I peed and I laid back in bed and I was like, I'm still having cramps. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is labor. And I was like, I'm going to sleep because that's the best thing you can do is sleep. Like just rest. If you can rest, do it. With my first, I had a birth tub and I got pool floaties and I fell asleep on the pool floaties in the birth tub. With my second, I made a pallet on the floor and my labor started at 4 a.m. I didn't have him till 10 at night and I was just sleeping, walking around, moving, but mostly lying and resting. And so with her, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to sleep. And I woke up at 7:30. I went and took a shower. I washed my hair. I took a bath. I was like, ooh-wee, this is about to be good. I'm going to be chilling all day. I put on my prettiest dress. I was like, I'm in labor. I went outside and I stretched. And then it was like 8:30. And I was like, wow, this is intense. This is crazy. What's going on right now? Huh? And then 9 o'clock came around and I was like, Avalon, I need you to make me a pallet upstairs. I could barely talk. I was like, I'm labor, pallet, please. And she made me a pallet upstairs and I just kept looking at my bed. I was like, I wish I could go to sleep right now. And I had called my mom. I got James to call my mom to come get the boys. And I really wanted them there, but I was downstairs on my hands and knees and they were pretending like I was the Eiffel Tower or like some type of bridge and they were crawling under me and around me. And I was like, I can't do this. I love you guys so much, but I cannot do this. So James called my mom and then I went upstairs and it's a very specific sensation that you have no idea how to explain until you have a baby, but it's like this pressure deep in your womb. And then it's like almost a fiery feeling. I wouldn't necessarily say it's painful. With my first birth, I was like, ow, 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 ow. But with my second, I was like, oh, this is the baby. Like it wasn't painful because I knew what it was. It wasn't unknown anymore. And I felt her coming down and I was like, no, I was like, no way. This, I thought I was going to have all day. I thought I was going to be hanging out. And I realized I'm like talking to myself upstairs, giving myself a pep talk. I'm like, man, if I don't push her out right now, I think I'm going to be in labor for another 4 hours. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. And I pushed her head out and then pushed her out. And I was like, James? I was upstairs by myself and he didn't answer me. He had gone outside to unlock the gate for my mom. So I'm like, hello, somebody. And he came upstairs and he was like, oh my gosh. And then my mom came upstairs and my 2 boys came upstairs. And I was so happy that they were there. I'm so happy that they didn't leave because they were able to see me not pregnant anymore, naked on the floor with their sister who's also naked. And my youngest is 2. And so he was like, baby? Oh, like the baby's not in your belly anymore. The baby's here. Like, whoa. And it was so beautiful. And they got me in bed and I was like, Avalon had laid me out just like some yoga mats and a blanket. And I had my little exercise ball and that's what I was leaning on. And James went to pick everything up, and I was like, there's totally poop. There's poop all over that blanket. And he looks and he was like, there's no poop. I was like, oh, wow. This is the first time that I've had a baby and did poop everywhere. Because that's one thing that women will get kind of embarrassed about. Like one woman, she was pregnant and she asked for my help. And I was like, how are you pooping in front of your husband? And she was like, I closed the door. I was like, you better leave that door open. You better get real comfortable pooping in front of your husband because it's going to happen. The first time I was in a tub and James had a little fishnet. I was like, I feel like I'm pooping. He's like, you're totally pooping. And second time I pooped in the toilet. And then...
I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah. It's because there's so much pressure. It just like pushes, it just comes out. Like you're not actively doing it. It's the baby is literally just pushing up against your intestines. Yeah. So my second.
So involuntary defecation is a thing at birth and death. It's just a transition thing.
Yes, it is definitely just a transition thing. And peeing is like, it's okay to pee on yourself. There's so much pressure down there. Waiting for a toilet, I don't think is an option. It is an option if you just sit on the toilet the whole time. But if you're like walking around, it feels really good to just like allow every orifice to open and just hang out.
Well, that's an amazing story. So it was 44 weeks altogether?
Yeah. 44 weeks and like 2 days.
That's cool because it's just another example of defying the conventional, laws of giving birth from the authority. That's not really the case. I wonder like what an effect it has on baby to cook longer, or if that's just a case-by-case basis. Maybe some of them need that, but I don't see how she looks great. I don't see that it does any harm. That's for sure.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that people will say is that like your placenta will start to calcify, your body, like your amniotic fluid will start to decrease. The baby will get too big and you won't be able to push the baby out. There's a lot of stuff that I had so many people telling me I should go to the hospital. It got to the point where I didn't leave my house because I didn't want to hear what anyone had to say about it. And it's a lot of fear that goes along with it. But I kept just being like, I'm not broken. I know I'm not broken. So say I go to the hospital, what are they going to do? They're going to give me an ultrasound. They're going to want to check my fluid. They're going to want to check me. I don't want the thought of having someone's hands inside of me is just like an old doctor. That just grosses me out. And I went outside. It was pretty hard. I went outside, like we have a little field. I went and stood in the middle of the field, and it was definitely a come to Jesus moment. I was like, God, what the fuck? What is going on? And the message I got back was, can you honor the mystery that I am? And I was like, all right, I'm here for it. I'm sitting in the most mysterious thing I've ever been through. And I had written in a little notebook, I was like, I'm going to have the best birth ever. And it's going to be like 4 hours long and it's going to be super blissful. And I like wrote all this stuff down. And it probably took me, like active labor was probably 2 hours. And so it was mysterious and beautiful and more than I could have ever imagined. And all I had to do was just be patient and sit with it. And that's all you can ever do in life in general, but especially during pregnancy and birth, whenever all of these changes are occurring. And we can only shed so much light, like the women that know about birth, that sit with birth the most. You're only ever pointing towards something, but you never quite know what it is until you experience it and until you're going through it. And even then you're just in awe because you're not doing anything and your body is creating an eyeball or an ear, and you don't have. With my first, I was pushing for such a long time, and I realized that I didn't have to be, because my body knows. Like, if you're like, should I push? No, you shouldn't push. If you're asking someone if you should push, or if you're wondering when the good time to push is, you just shouldn't push, because you will know. It's one of those things where it's like, here is the key. And the person's like, when will I know how to use it? And they're like, you will know. That's the whole thing with birth and pregnancy. Like, you'll know. Even if you're not an intuitive person, you can't help it. You already know. Your body already knows. It's this deep ancestral thing that, it's not even ancestral. It's just innate in mammals across the board. And we have goats and stuff. So I see them giving birth. They don't need anybody. So I'm like, they're out there.
I'm smarter than a goat.
Yeah, I'm smarter than a goat. Exactly. Sorry, Penny. She's great. I love her.
Well, that's the thing I like most about your overall message, which is if women could, or just human beings in general, could just make that a mantra. I'm not broken. I'm not broken. That's so important. And of course, one of the bigger problems with how mainstream everything treats everything is that everything is supposed to be the same, like one size fits all type of deal, especially untrue in pregnancy, but really across the board. Like, when did nature ever make something the same way twice? Even in two plants of the same species or two animals of the same species, are they identical? No. There's always wiggle. Nature's main constant is change itself. So makes sense to me that sometimes a baby is going to be in there for 44 weeks. And if there's, if you're a pregnant woman and you are just struggling with fear, like the baby's going to be too big, or any of the other question marks that might be there about, I know, to me, it sounds a little silly to imagine the placenta calcifying or amniotic fluid going bad or whatever, but, the too big to get out question, maybe if that's circling your mind, you can do things to help induce the labor. There's plants that help facilitate the process. If you'll know, right? So if you feel like you need help and you need to make it happen, then that's what you do. But don't, don't get hung up on the other people telling you there's something wrong. If you know that there's nothing wrong, if you feel it, if you're sure. And I love that when you know, and that's so important to always remember in everything in life that we're trying to do. So is there anything else about prepping for birth before we get into talking about some of the, mental techniques or tips and tricks for, how you do what you do, bringing a baby into the world all by yourself upstairs on a pallet? How do we get people to your level?
I think it's readily available. You just have to believe in yourself. You really just have to know that everything's okay. And the doctors can't save you. Only God can save you. And that's a hard one. And it's, with my first, I had 3 distinct dreams that I bled out and died. And in each of the dreams, I remember being okay with how everything went. And the hardest part about having a baby is that they're gonna die. Hopefully not as a baby, but we all die. And you really have to get comfortable with that. And it's really hard. It's having a child, you've never felt the love. You didn't know that it was possible. I remember my mom trying to tell me whenever I was pregnant with my first, and I was like, I've done mushrooms, okay? I've felt the love of God. You don't even know what I've experienced on psychedelics. And then I had a baby and I was like, oh, that pales in comparison to actually having a child. It's so much more. I'm like, this is how God views us. I don't know. Like, it's beautiful. And with that, joy brings an incredible amount of sorrow because they're not going to be forever. And I'm just comfortable knowing that if my baby were to die at home, that I'd rather that than have them taken from me and separated and being poked and prodded. And that's a really hard place to get. And I don't expect anyone to get there. That's just my path. That's just what I've felt comfortable with. And so it's a real big deep dive into what this life is. And yep, we're all going to die, but it's okay because we're having fun while we're here. And it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful place. Birth is amazing. Having children is amazing. And you get to experience so much love more than you've ever known in your whole life. And the more children you have, the more love you have. And you didn't even think that was possible. It's obviously infinite, but you can only kind of like mentally jive with it until you experience it. And once you experience it, your whole life changes. Once you've experienced having a baby, there's no going back.
And so that's like after baby is out is when it happens, because I don't really feel much right now.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I feel a lot. I feel a lot when I'm like talking to the belly and singing, and I feel the movements and the response to my presence, and it's a lot, but I bet that I haven't even really cracked the surface. So that's cool. And it's very wise what you're saying, coming to terms and acceptance with the grief that is implicit in joy, that those two things are actually part of the same exact energetic frequency. They exist in the same area of the heart chakra, which is cool. So the left side of the heart chakra, joy, love, grief, loss, all in the same thing. You need one to have the other. You can't get away without both. You know, if you repress one, then you repress the other. So that's important. You know, that's what the whole antidepressants work on is, and that's what people feel numbed out, is because, yeah, you might not have as much depression or sadness, but also it's robbing you of your joy. And the, the truth of life, that the individual lives are temporary. I think that's a healthy perspective to just get real about up front. I like that. But yeah, let's talk about if there's more besides that mental preparation in terms of any other things to like have ready or have at hand or have practiced before giving birth, or should we get right into the main event itself?
Well, I think the practicing before helps, like, is the main event also. So we can get into that, and I will get my lovely assistant over here. The only thing about it is that I won't have my headphones in. So I'm just going to be talking until we're done. And then I'll come sit back down and have my headphones in.
Cool.
So this is our lovely Avalon. I have a balloon here that my son drew on, and this is going to be her belly. And we're going to practice some moves to help relieve pressure from the growing belly and the crunching that many women can feel in their backs, because whenever your belly is growing, a lot of times you're standing like this. And so you can feel a lot in your lower back. So we're going to do something called Rebozoing, and it is just a scarf. And we're going to wrap it. We're going to place it right here on the back. And under the buttocks. And we're going to do a little shimmy shake, and I'll show you guys. So what this is doing is relieving the weight of the belly. It gets real heavy down there. And so the pregnant woman is going to have to guide the Rebozo on what feels best. So maybe it's like lifting it up towards the head more or down to relieve pressure in that upper abdomen. But I've found with the women I've worked with, it's mostly the lower part of the belly that whenever you pick up the bottom part of the Rebozo, that helps. So I'm about to show you what I mean. So I'm picking up the bottom part of the Rebozo, the scarf, and I'm bringing it up towards the head, and I'm doing a little shimmy shake with it. Your shimmy shake will depend on the woman. Maybe she wants a little bit more shimmy shake, maybe a lot less. Maybe she just wants you to hold it up. So that really helps with the belly. And this can be done all throughout your pregnancy and during the birth. That helps as well. And so another way to use the Rebozo, and this can be done leaning on the chair like this or on all fours. It feels best on all fours, but you won't be able to see us. We're on all fours. So then what you can do is take your Rebozo, and this is an all fours move. So the top of the Rebozo is on that lower back part. The bottom is right underneath the butt. And we are relieving the crunchiness in the lower back. And so it feels best if you get traction on the back. So you take the top part of the Rebozo here, and I'm pushing it down and kind of away and giving a shimmy shake. The shimmy shake here feels really good. And again, the mom is going to have to let you know which way is the best way for this. And it's really just practice. So this is great for your communication, for her being able to like speak her mind on like, yes, that feels good. No, that doesn't feel good, to the left, to the right. And it's great for the husband to be able to receive the communication from it. So sometimes it can be like, oh God, stop. And both of y'all can't get butthurt about it because we're all just talking and hanging out. And so one of the last Rebozos I will show is for the breasts. And this feels really good because as you're growing, your breasts will be growing. They're creating lots and lots of alveoli, which we'll talk about later, which are the glands that help produce milk. So your breasts will get humongo. So you're putting it at the top of the chest and right underneath the breasts. Top of the chest, right underneath the breasts, and just lifting and holding and supporting. That's the biggest thing, is support. Another thing I like to do, which is what I did first, is another thing I didn't do this first. So I was going to say in the first birth that I attended, I used a yoga strap. And this just gave me way more tug on the lower back to help relieve the crunchiness, and allowed her to breathe a lot more space into there. And so there's also something called compressions, which are like this. So I'm taking that back and I'm pushing against her lower back, kind of love handles area. You'll feel your, I don't really know what it's called. I'm sorry. Your hip bone tips in the back. You're pushing against those. And that helps kind of open the bottom of your pelvic bowl. So you're pushing at the top, opening up at the bottom. And I also have a yoga ball here. And so sometimes it really helps if you put this on their back and you press down against that, especially with someone that's experiencing back labor. It feels very intense. I don't want to put any words in someone's mind about it. I've experienced back labor and it can be a lot. So having something to relieve those sensations, like a yoga ball, like some thumbs, but your thumbs can get tired. So these are really nice. You can buy these at Academy or a yoga store, really anywhere. And another big thing pre-birth would be to roll out your feet and to get lots of foot massages, because your feet are your foundation and you don't want tight feet. You don't want feet cramps or leg cramps. So using these to help roll your feet out, stretch your feet, big toes, splayed toes, that really helps a lot. So that's all I have with Avalon.
Awesome. Very good demo.
Thank you. We did our best.
So at this point, I'm in the zone of I don't know what I don't know to even ask about. So if there's more things to practice before the main event, as we've been saying, that's cool. You just take it away. Guide us through the things you wanted to share with us.
Yeah. So on popular media, you see a lot of, I think it's called Lamaze, or they're like, I would 100% advise against that. Not only does that give you an incredibly dry mouth, but it also might make you have an anxiety attack. Deep breaths, like we talked about before. There's some really good meditations where you can breathe deeply and imagine your yoni opening up like a beautiful lotus flower or a rose or whatever flower you prefer. And with each breath is another petal opening up. And you can record yourself doing this. Like you can record your husband giving you this meditation of, and with each breath, I'm widening and I'm opening and I'm preparing for my baby. With each surge, I am getting ready to meet my beautiful baby. And so the thing about contractions is that they're spaced apart. It's not just like you're feeling contractions the whole time until you have a baby. They're very, very rhythmic. And you can time the contractions. And so it's like the end of one contraction to the beginning of another contraction. So you're like, they're 5 minutes apart. And then whenever they get like 1 minute apart, this is how like the allopathic model does it. And a lot of midwives and licensed midwives, they'll time the contractions. My only thing with that is that sometimes your contractions can be 10 minutes apart and then they're 5 minutes apart. And so you're like, oh my God, here I go. And then they're 10 minutes apart again. So during the spaces in between the surges, instead of trying to rationalize them or time them or count them, really just relax and be in like this limbo state of peace before the next one comes. And in that state of peace, you can have a mantra or still imagine yourself opening and widening and deepening. And also something very important is in those spaces, have your husband or your midwife or your doula or whoever is there with you put water in your face. You need water and you need snacks. At a hospital, they won't let you eat. You can only have ice chips just in case you have to go into for a C-section. I don't know about at birth centers, but I know midwives are like really cool about food. They know what's up. They know you have to eat. So having food, having water. I've made something called Labor Aid. You can find it on the interwebs, and it's like honey, lemon juice, coconut water. Rescue Remedy is in it a lot. Trace minerals. You can put whatever else you want, some teas in there, maybe like lemon balm, oat straw, red raspberry. That would be delicious. And so keeping yourself very well hydrated, keeping yourself fed. Smoothies are great. That's been my smoothies, and watermelon and grapes have been my go-tos. Love watermelon. It's pretty much like you're eating water.
And on Doctrine of Signatures level, having a watermelon kind of, to me, simulates the third trimester full package belly.
Yeah, that's right. Be the watermelon that you're birthing. That's the beauty of it. And I have actually, back in my bag of tricks, I have this book, Wise Woman Herbal for the Childbearing Year by Susan Weed. And this goes through herbs that you can't have, herbs that are great for you. I suggest every pregnant woman get this book because it also has things to help with morning sickness, constipation, heartburn, fatigue, labor, after pregnancy, your baby. It's got so many great things in it. And then this book also, Birthing from Within by Pam England. It has really fun activities, like arts and crafts that you can do with your husband and your girlfriends before you have a baby. One that I really like to do is your birthing landscape. So you can draw yourself. How do you view yourself as a pregnant woman? I like that one a lot. I also like, how do you view yourself giving birth? And all of these things can really give you a deeper look into your psyche and how you're experiencing the idea of birth. So is it like this beautiful, majestic, bright colors and flowers and rainbows, or is it super dark? And you might not know that until you really ponder these thoughts. Another fun one in here that I like to do is a labyrinth. So you make a labyrinth out of clay, or I did it once out of string. That because a labyrinth, the way in is the way out. It's not a maze. It's not intentionally confusing. You just keep following it, and it'll bring you in, and it'll bring you out. And so I did this with clay, and you just create the labyrinth. That way you have something for your finger to follow, and you can just breathe with it and follow the labyrinth. Breathe in and breathe out and keep tracing and kind of have something for your mind to rest on if you're having a lot of trouble. Birth is really beautiful and really intense. So sometimes it can feel overwhelming. Sometimes it can feel painful. Sometimes it can feel blissful. It really has a like a wavering flow to it. It really depends on your mindset. You can choose for it to be the most excruciatingly painful thing in your life, or you can understand that all of these sensations are bringing you towards your baby and everything ends. Everything ends. That was my mantra with my last one. I thought I was going to be pregnant forever, and I wasn't. I was in labor. Labor was really intense, and I was like, this isn't forever. Nothing is forever. And through the nothing is forever, you can kind of find joy in it because it's for such a short amount of time. My first labor was 3 days long. It was so long and so confusing because I had back labor. I didn't feel anything in my uterus. There was no uterine cramping. It was only this crazy sensation in my back. And that ended. It was only 3 days, and that was it.
Is there something you can do about back labor?
Okay.
Like position-wise?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, you can. Back labor is I got my baby here. Okay. So usually the baby is like this. And there's like technical terms for all of this, but I don't remember them. So we're going with vibes here, guys. So the baby's like this. Like this. You can feel the back and the head and the butt. If the baby is like this, the baby's called sunny side up. That's the vibe term for it, not the official term for it. And so when the baby's like this, their head and their butt is pushing on your spine. And it's a lot. It's just so many sensations on your spine, like nerves. My first back labor experience, I said it felt like 1,000 hot knives in my back. But I was able to like transcend it and go to a place of pleasure with it and then come back and forth. It was very much vacillating. My mind couldn't decide if I enjoyed it or if it was super awful. And then my second was sunny side up as well. And I could feel the back labor starting. And I have a friend who is an unlicensed midwife, and she is a wonderful woman. And she came over because I had passed 2 blood clots whenever I was in labor, and they were huge. They were the size of my hand. And I was like, what is going on? What's going on? I was very confused. And so she came over and she was like, did you do anything strenuous? I was like, you know what? We're living in our tiny house and we had a pull-out bed, and I pulled out the bed too far. And so I had to get the plywood back on, and I strained. I ripped my placenta off the placenta wall a little bit. As soon as she said this, I was like, that makes total sense. That's exactly what happened. So blood pooled, and then my contractions expelled the blood. And she was like, your baby's sunny side up, by the way. You're going to be in labor forever. So do this. She said, put several pillows or a peanut ball, which I have a peanut ball. I should have brought it down for this. It's a little exercise ball. It's in the shape of a peanut. And I don't know how to explain this well. Lay on your side and put your knees as far back as they can go. And this will help the baby. I need to help my baby. So I'm going to pause this for a second and go help her.
That was it. We're all good.
That was it. James is great. He's got her. He's rocking her. He's such a great papa.
I can't wait to do that.
No, it's so good. It's so good. You just look at them and you're like, oh, I love you so much. So you're kind of in this almost like arch back position with your knees as far back. I'm going to stand up and try and explain this.
Like behind you. Try to get your knees behind you, basically.
So you're laying on your side and you got something in between your knees and their back. So they're back with something far in between the knees. That way, it like opens up your pelvic bowl so that your baby can kind of turn in it. Yeah, okay. Maybe pause for a sec. We're going to try a little nurse sesh. You just like hang out with them, and they it's like their mouths are like little vacuums. They just like vacuum the nipple in their mouth and nurse away. It's so beautiful. So yeah, you do that little maneuver. Whenever I had midwives and my baby was sunny side up, they said to lie flat on my back and get in a bridge position. So like have my feet firmly planted on the ground, lie on my back, and lift my butt up in the air and try and push. But that didn't really work. The knee thing, having a pillow in between your knees or a peanut ball and having them kind of back behind you, that really helped. And that's how I slept while I was pregnant, because I didn't want to have back labor. And so whenever you're pregnant, and there's this whole thing with sleeping on your back, because you have a major vein that runs through the center of your body, your vena cava, pretty sure. And all the pressure on it can like cut off some blood supply to the baby. It can make you feel weird. It really depends on how you feel and when the proper time to stop laying on your back is. So I laid on my back for a long time until one night I was laying on my back. It's so funny because I was like, oh God, I can't breathe. Something's wrong. Like, am I dying? What's going on? And I was like, I'm laying on my back. Of course I can't breathe. The pressure on my lungs right now is so intense. So I rolled over, put so many pillows in between my legs. You really want your knee in line with your hip and your ankle and your foot in line with your, all of it in a line. All of it in line with your hip. So that might be 4 or 5 pillows in between your legs. I had a little pregnancy pillow, and then I had 2 more pillows on top of that because it just felt so good. And I always laid on my left side because I had really bad heartburn. And then I had a pillow under my belly, supporting my belly. Because sometimes when the belly's hanging, it can feel like a lot of pulling sensation in your back and on your abdomen. So having the most support you can is very, very helpful for just overall well-being, support in all the areas.
Cool. I'm glad you covered off the laying on the back question. That's something Jennifer was wary of because of all the don't do this messaging. But when we talked to our midwife about it, she said, it's fine and you'll know if it's not fine. Yeah. So, just it's more important to get comfortable sleep than to worry about that positioning. And then whenever you can't get comfortable sleep in that position, then it's kind of a moot point and you'll know not to do it anymore. So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And let's talk about the birthing positions strategy for like when we're actually in labor, and then, ways that us dads can help, stuff like that. The communication mom might be receiving from baby during the process of baby coming, things on those lines.
Yeah. So all fours is a great position. One thing I want to say is don't be afraid of being in a position and worrying about your babies falling out of you, like hurting themselves when they fall. They're like rubber, literally until they're like 2 years old. They're made out of rubber. It's crazy how much they bounce. My son ran and jumped onto a concrete floor, bounced, and was fine. He's alive to tell the tale. So yeah, especially when they're infants, they're so like floppy's not a good word, but they're so floppy. And so yeah, if you're on all fours or if you're standing up squatting and it feels good, don't be afraid that your baby's going to like fall out and break their neck or something, because that's not how that works. So yeah, all fours is a really good position. I think it allows for the mom to feel comfortable, for the dad to like do pressure or do any other like maneuvers that he feels, like the counter pressure that we talked about, the Rebozo that we talked about, lifting up the belly that we showed. That's really nice whenever you're on all fours because it's all readily available. You could have a cup in front of her with a straw. That way all she has to do is do this and drink. That'd be a good one. Maybe watermelon in reach. That's a great one too. If you're in the birthing pool on your knees or floating on your back, one that can really help, which I craved during my labor with Solvi, was so like someone can come behind you and hold you from under the arms while you are kind of squatting but don't have a lot of pressure on your legs. So the father behind you supports most of your weight while you're kind of squatting, hanging a little bit there. That way you still have space to move your hips and kind of to flow with contractions and move however you want, move your legs, but you're allowing the downward force that the baby's trying to go by squatting. You're allowing that avenue to be open. There's something called the running man, which is whenever you're on one knee and then one leg is kind of up. I wish I could show you, but I'm feeding a baby right now. So you're on one knee, so you're kind of close to the ground. You're able to anchor down by putting your hands on the floor, kind of grounding in that way. But one leg is up, so you're still allowing for that like space for the baby to come through. You can always side lie and hold a leg up. So you're laying on your side and you're holding one leg up. That felt really good for me during a lot of my contractions. That's something that I would do, would lay and hold a leg. Similar to the father being behind you and holding you under the arms is having, if you have like yoga swing or silks or a hammock that you can get above you and you can hold on to it. That gives you the same position and you're able to like pull and have something to kind of work against as the contraction is coming and you're pushing down. So what's happening inside of you, let me get my little baby out here, is that, so the pelvic inlet, which is the top of your pelvic bowl, is wider from left to right. So that's why the baby's sitting like this, because the baby's head is wider. It's, wider front to back right here. Like this. This is how the baby is. And so pelvic inlet's wider from left to right. So the baby's coming down that way. And then it hits the ischial bones, which are the bones right before your pelvic outlet. And whenever it comes past those bones, the baby spirals. So just like your womb is doing this spiraling contraction maneuver, the baby is spiraling as well. And so as the baby's coming down and after it hits those ischial spines, it spirals to where now it's like, so the baby was like this. And now it's spiraling to be like this. So it can go around those ischial spines and come out through the pelvic outlet. And you can see, if you're watching, you can see the baby turn its head, because as the baby's head turns, the shoulders will turn as well. And then it'll kind of like turn back and correct itself. So it's so kind of like swimming through the vaginal canal, coming down and out. So if you can, so that's why the mother and the baby work synergistically with one another. And it's very beautiful to see how the mother might feel an instinct to move into switch positions. And like everyone might be in one groove. The mom's like in this one position and it feels so good. And then she's like, I gotta move. And this is so that, because she knows intuitively, internally, with the connection she has with her baby, that the baby needs to move too. So she'll move in another position and the baby will come out. And it can feel, if at any point the mother is like, I can't do this, I feel stuck, or someone says that her labor has plateaued or something like that, that just means something needs to change. That just means whatever vibes are happening right now, switch them up. So dim some lights, light a candle. Maybe it's too dark. I don't think it can be too dark, but maybe she needs like another candle. Maybe she needs to get up or walk around, or maybe she just needs water or a snack. There isn't really, in my mind, I think I'm the big, like, you can do it. Like, it can feel really hard sometimes, but you can do it. And if you think you can't do it, maybe just switch it up a little bit. Maybe you're on your hands and knees and you need to be upright. Being upright for me felt so right during Solvi's birth, because I was on my hands and knees, and then my little medicine ball was in reach, and I laid on the medicine ball and was squatting on the ground. And that felt so good to me. If I had hung my hammock, like I said that I would, from my little things, and I had that to hold, I would have loved that.
So this is a really important difference between birth at home or at a birth center versus the hospital. And there's probably hospital births that would make allowances for being in a different position, but the whole laying on your back on the exam bed, feet in the stirrups or whatever they do in the more standard hospital birth, it seems like the worst possible position of all possible positions. And what I'm getting from this is, and as someone who wants to guide and facilitate and help my wife get through her birth as best as possible, that to be paying attention to, like, okay, does this feel good? Is there relief commingled with the contractions in this position, or do we feel stuck? Is there this sense of plateau? Let's just change it up. So, like, not being afraid to, don't get stuck on one position just because it was good, right? Like, change it up as often as feels right.
Yes, exactly. And to what you said with lying on your back, you're fighting against what? So, like, to lie on your back, the baby would have to come up and then out, which seems like so much more stress on everyone.
That's why they grab them with tongs. Just got
tongs. Get me started on these tongs. Those tongs are so scary. Oh my gosh, they're so.
I know. I'm pretty sure they did that for when I came out. Like,
they tonged you?
I think so. That's what my dad said. So they had tongue marks on my head.
They do. I was reading something about these tongs, and what's his name? Sylvester Stallone? Is that the actor? Why his face is all messed up is because he got tonged whenever he was a baby.
Whoa.
It's very sad. If you watch,
they call it forceps, right? Medical forceps.
Yes,
but but it's basically just tongs.
They are. They're like tongs with big bowls for arms. It's so sad. If you watch videos of the vacuum that they'll use, which is like a corkscrew, that, and then the tongs, and then what else do they do? Like circumcision or episiotomies. Like if you actually watch videos of these procedures, you, like, no woman in their rightful mind would be like, that's okay that happened. It's incredibly violating and unnecessary. It's horrid.
Yeah, well, at least it's gotten better than the days of scopolamine and morphine and the twilight sleep.
They give out nitrous oxide instead of an epidural. They'll let you do whippets pretty much. And I think that's funny, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so, we are closing in on the 2-hour mark, and there's probably more to say than might easily fit in. So I really want to just let you roll through if there's more to say, advice for the giving birth part, or to start talking postpartum, birth of placenta, the bleeding question after birth, that type of stuff, I think would be really great.
Yes. So birth is super straightforward, in my opinion. Positions: hands and knees, running man, squatting, side lying, holding yourself, being held. But again, you'll know what feels right. Like, you might practice all of these positions, and then come time with birth and you just want to be like alone in a dark corner. You never know until it's there. So after you have the baby, it's so great. So the baby will be connected to its placenta still inside of you. And they are slippery whenever they first come out. So they're covered in vernix, which is like this white stuff. I don't know. It's kind of like tacky that's on them. And rub that in. That's good for them. It's like the OG tallow balm for babies. So they'll come out and you're like, love your baby. And you look at your baby, and you don't have to like stick your nipple in their mouth right away. Like, y'all are just coming down from the highest experience you'll ever have. And so sometimes it can be difficult, depending on what position you're in, to get up. So you'll need lots of hands like help if you have like a shorter cord or whatever. And a lot of people worry about the cord wrapped around the neck, and that is a non-issue, in my opinion, because the baby's not getting oxygen from its lungs. Whenever it's connected to the cord, it's still getting oxygen from its placental cord. And so the birth isn't done until you birth the placenta, because you still have to birth the placenta. It can just fall out of you after an amount of time, but sometimes you might have to like effort it out. So one of my friends, I asked her if I could tell this story, and she told me yes. She had her baby. Her midwife was the unlicensed midwife that I absolutely love and aspire to be like one day. She had her baby, and in the hospital, I think you're allowed, I don't know, maybe, I want to say 30 minutes to birth your placenta, but that honestly seems like a far reach. A short amount of time to birth your placenta, maybe an hour, I don't know. But it can come anywhere between 30 minutes to, my friend didn't birth her placenta for 19 hours. And so beautiful. Like, she was fine. Her midwife was like, you're good. Everything's okay. And everyone was all worried. And her midwife just sat there and she was like, maybe you just need to eat. Maybe you need to take a bath. It's okay. You're not broken. Everything's fine. And after 19 hours, that thing came out of her. And it's so beautiful to hear that story. And I want to tell everyone I meet that story, because it absolutely defies. I've never heard of a placenta coming out after 19 hours. That's a long time. That's like a day. And so, yeah, after your placenta out, there's nothing else in you except for blood, which will come out. And you can just free bleed on, you can buy birth pads, I think, but I just bought doggy pee-pee pads from Tractor Supply. They're very cheap and you can get a lot. Or you can be fancy, which I'm probably going to do next time, and get some cloth pads, like some cotton, 100% cotton pads. That's nice. If you prepare to cloth diaper your baby, you can use their cloth diaper inserts, which is what I have used also. But I think really just bleeding, not having anything touching you, is the best thing to do. If you tear or it feels uncomfortable, just keep your legs closed. Or if you feel like you need assistance, you can use Manuka honey. And I've heard of women doing Manuka honey and nori as like the Band-Aid over the honey, but Manuka honey does the trick. As long as you breathe deeply throughout your baby emergence, you'll be fine.
Nori is like a seaweed, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't, like, the vagina is meant to stretch and tear and do its thing. You really don't have to worry about it. She good. She's literally made for it. And that's the beauty of it. So salt is also really good to have while you're in labor, giving birth, postpartum. I know a pinch of salt brought me back to life after I gave birth to Solvi. And I was chilling with her and the placenta still in me. And I started feeling weak and nauseous and not very good. Pinch of salt brought me back to life. My placenta was kind of coming slow. And so whenever I felt like it was time, I kind of just like wrapped the cord around my finger and gently tugged on it. You're not trying to rip this thing out. I just like gently tugged on it and I felt that it was coming. So I got James to hold Solvi and I kneeled up, like got on my knees and just kind of like pulled it, slid right out. Felt so good. So there's always a lot of talk about postpartum depression. And I really want to talk about the beautiful ecstatic nature of your postpartum time.
Postpartum ecstasy.
That's right. It's postpartum ecstasy. It doesn't have to be so sad. Everyone likes to be sad. Not everyone, but a lot of people like to be sad. And if you're okay with feeling emotions, like sadness comes, sadness goes, but you can really hone in and focus on the joy.
The thing is about, this is just my observation, right? But what I've noticed about ladies and men, the difference between men and women, a difference is that men, they will look at who is like crushing the hardest, who's the top, who's the peak. And we're like, okay, that's our standard, everybody. That guy that's crushing, he's the standard. We're aiming for that. Ladies, on the other hand, they tend to look at the lowest common denominator and then circle the wagons around that. And that's okay. That's how they support each other. That's how they're like community and collective and feel good minded. But just, I think that's where this postpartum depression theme comes from, that tendency. I'm not saying every woman does that in every case all the time, right? We all have masculine and feminine traits that we express as well. And, women can have the heroic masculine crusher peak mindset about stuff too. But just like left to the natural tendency, they tend to do that, of circle around the lowest common denominator. And just being aware of that, men being aware of that about women can be helpful for us to understand their social dynamics. And then ladies being aware of that about themselves can maybe bring some more choice to whether or not they want to do that in a situation.
Yes. And always and forever support yourself with women who are equally crushing and not having pity parties all the time, because pity parties are way too addicting. I love a good pity party. And I cannot have them because I love them so much. So anytime I get into a pity party,
ladies love them.
yeah. It's like ladies love that and ladies love to gossip. I kind of say it's like the women of the village. Like the women of the village always passed on these stories, and they kind of were in everyone's business so that they could bring up the village. Like, this person does bad, we need to help them or talk to them or whatever. And that's really nice, but we're not in this village dynamic anymore. And so you have to be very weary of the gossiping and the pity parties and let's circle a wagon around this person feeling so poopy. Because you can, but you can't stay there. You have to build them up. And so if a mother is feeling upset or sad, you can honor that and love her and be like, but look at the joy. Like one thing my husband does whenever I have like both the boys tugging on my skirt, be like, mommy, oh God, oh geez. He's like, don't you just feel so loved? All they want is you. Isn't this what you've always wanted? And in the moments of having kids, like screaming, crying, pulling on your clothes, it can be very like flustering and you feel frazzled and, oh my gosh. And then if you take a step back and you're like, wow, yeah, they really love me and I'm all they want right now. And that's beautiful. So if you can see that what you've always desired, you have, then you can really start going with the flow and loving your life and loving your baby, even though they're fussy. Like, how scary must it be to have everything taken care of? You don't even have to think about pooping. You don't even know what pooping is. You don't even know what eating is. You don't even know what feeling cold is. And then you come out here and it's bright and you get a chilly wind and you're a little bit hungry. And your tummy hurts, but you don't even know what that means. Like anytime my babies get upset, I'm just like, you're okay. It happens. Sometimes there's pain in this place. I love you. But postpartum, there's this book called The First 40 Days. First 40 Days, The Essential Art of Nourishing the New Mother. And it has by Heng Ooh, she's Chinese. She studied traditional Chinese medicine. And there are recipes in here of broths, of warming foods. And in traditional Chinese medicine, what it says is that if a woman experiences postpartum depression, then she caught the cold wind, which is like her womb felt cold, her body felt cold. So you want to have warm broths and teas. Kyle at Tippecanoe Herbs has some really great teas that I kept on deck for postpartum. I also made a lot of stuff, which had like a mineral blend. I call it Mineral Mama. I think we're going to have it at Family Fungi here soon. And that was an oxymel. So you want your warm teas, your broths, your hearty soups. So like if you can get stew meats, you want like warm nourishment to happen right after you have the baby. I think sipping on broth is it's almost like breaking your fast, sipping on some nice broth. How we do it is you get your broth and you blend a couple eggs in it. And it makes it like this beautiful, creamy deliciousness. Bunch of salt, garlic powder, I don't know, whatever herbs fit your fancy. And that's a great way to nourish your body right after you have the baby if food feels a bit heavy. Congee is also a good one, which is like rice porridge. That's what congee is pretty much. And you can cook it with broth and it's really easy to eat. Getting moms things that they can eat with one hand or feeding them is the best thing you can do, because it can feel overwhelming. You used to have 2 hands and now you have 1. And yeah, the maiden to mother transition is something I really wanted to talk about, but I don't think we'll have time for that one. Your whole life is changing, and it's better to just like absolutely surrender to the mother than to try and grasp at what used to be the maiden, because you are not that anymore. And so your whole life is going to change. And the women that say like, your life's not going to change, they're railing against the mother, and it's very painful to do that, rather than just absolutely being okay with hanging out with your baby. And our bodies produce so many hormones to make it the most ecstatic experience of our lives. So after your baby's born, you got to nurse, and it's so much fun. It can be hard at first. Sometimes they don't latch well, or they're having trouble. And if they don't latch, it can be very painful. Their suck is so hard. It's amazing how intuitively they are created. So you can I'm going to show you a couple different holds. The baby's so small when they're born too. You can hold them like this and nurse them like this. You can do like this, nurse them like this. If your flow is like coming too heavy, you can lay them directly on you. They're not going to suffocate. If they feel anything on their nose, they're going to try and move their head. Your baby doesn't want to die. They like really want to be here. And so your breasts are going to be engorged. They're very large. And so sometimes it's hard to get the nipple in. So you can do this thing called the hamburger hold, and say this is like a breast. You can like squeeze it like this and make the nipple pop out. And you kind of want to like rub it against the top of their nose and come down, and they'll open their mouth up beautifully. Side lying is a great one. So I had trouble sleeping and nursing with my first because I didn't realize I could just lay down and have them cradled in my armpit and have my breasts right there by their mouth. Nobody has to move. Nobody has to do anything. If a baby's bottle fed, they'll get a lot of air. So you have to like burp them. But usually with breastfed babies, they're not getting a lot of air in there. Your nipple and their mouth is just a perfect match. So you won't start producing milk until like your 4th or 5th day. And the baby's just getting colostrum, which is like a super concentrated milk. And it's gold. It's liquid gold. And so your breasts won't start they'll get huge. It's so crazy. Like 2 to 3 times what they were before. And your milk will just start pouring out. And it's beautiful. It'll just be the fountain of youth. So when that happens, you might have to like hold your baby upright, and that really, you don't even have to like pat them. Usually just holding them upright allows them to let go of trapped air. And then another hold that I really like, and that she really likes, look how cute she is back there. It's called a football hold. And so you hold them like this. You can pat their back, and their head is rested kind of on the crease of your elbow. And they have no control over their neck whenever they're first born. So you really have to support them and help them out. If you're side-lying nursing and you just like pick them up and put them on your chest, she sleeps most of the time on my chest because I just nurse her, and then we fall asleep like this, and I just hold her all night. And you just look in their eye. So oxytocin and prolactin get released by your pituitary gland. The prolactin tells your body to pull nutrients from your blood supply, and create the milk. And then the oxytocin contracts the muscles to then expel the milk out. And oxytocin is the love hormone. It also helps contract your uterus postpartum. So there's something called afterbirth pains, and it's just whenever your uterus is contracting after you have the baby back down. And so you want them to, like, after you get comfortable in your bed, after you have your baby, they'll start suckling, and you can just put them right on your breast and they'll start sucking. And then after 3 or 4 days, the milk will floweth over and y'all will just be so happy. And you just look in their eyes and they look in your eyes, and it's so sweet. And I think, so in the hospital, they'll put like this goop on their eyes. I don't really know what it is. But they have their eyes closed a lot. And I call it open-eyed meditation with your baby. Having an open-eyed meditation with your baby is the best thing y'all can do, because you just start releasing all of these hormones. They're feeling it, you're feeling it, and you could just cry because you're so happy. It's beautiful. And with Ja, my first, I was overwhelmed with the joy and the bliss that I felt. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? It's like I'm at a rave. Oh my God, I'm on so much ecstasy right now. It was overwhelming. And then with my second, I could feel it. Like I could feel myself like look at him, and then I could feel the hormones coming down, and just like my milk would start flowing. And it's weird because it's called a letdown reflex, and you can feel it up at your collarbones, and you can like feel milk come. It's a wild sensation.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I heard about the oxytocin release, that children and mothers have the highest oxytocin release when mom is soothing and like, oh, they're there, like they get a boo-boo, she's comforting, that type of nurture. And that father and child have the highest oxytocin release together when it's playtime, when dad's playing.
yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah, that is.
So I'm excited to be in charge of playtime.
Oh, you're gonna.
We have a good job, the dads.
Yeah. James loves playing. It's so funny. But the last thing I want to say was like, so after you have your baby and your belly might feel very. It's going to feel very empty because it is. You might want a little support. So you can use your Rebozo and you can tie it right under your belly to kind of hold it up. Or I bought this little, I'm pretty sure it's like a waist trainer thing, but it goes around your waist and it's got Velcro.
Kind of like a corset jam.
Yeah. And you just kind of put it goes around your back, and you can use it to kind of hold your belly up and give you some extra support after you have the baby. Because you'll have a little pooch, but it's a perfect pooch to hold your little baby on. It's like a little kangaroo pouch.
Awesome. This has been great, Elise. I learned a lot. And,
Thanks.
With knowledge comes a lot more comfortableness with the process and the days to come for me. And I hope that people that are not yet to the point of parenthood are going to take note of this episode, put it in, save it somewhere, or just remember it exists for when they get there. But overall, I think that it's interesting to learn these things just from the perspective of like life, being curious about life on Earth, and the fact that everybody that you've ever met, that's how they got here. It was in a belly and then through the birth process. It's really mind blowing when you think about it that way, because there's a lot of people out there. And so at the very least, to not be afraid, be ye not afraid of all of this, because it's literally how all the billions and zillions of people that have ever existed got here, including well before there was any kind of training available or backup plans and hospitals and all of the above. So you're literally made to do this. It's the number one thing you're made to do. The meaning of life is life. The purpose of life is for life to continue to exist. And this is the method in which it happens. And it's beautiful. I really love the perspective you share about the whole process. And I appreciate the time that you gave to us today. And thanks to James for watching the little one, Solvi, while you were busy teaching the world. Thank you so much, Elise. Do you have any closing thoughts for people before we wrap this up?
Have fun. Have fun with it. It can be a lot of fun if you let it be. It can be very serious if you let it be too. But if you just have fun and know that everything's okay, you're okay, your baby's okay, your husband's okay, your family's okay. It's the most beautiful experience you will ever have. So yeah, that's about it.
Right. And there's not like a wrong, I think that's the best part is it's going to be different for everybody. Just go with it as it presents itself. But all right, well, we'll wrap this up and glad everybody that listened to the whole thing joined us. And thanks again, Elise. Love you guys.
Yeah, we love you.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And wasn't that a nice one? I thought Elise was just lovely and so strong and brave. Very impressive, especially the story about the 44 weeks pregnant before giving birth. That's pretty cool. And doing it at home by herself, I would give her the top gold star, the maybe even ideal situation is how I would describe her birth giving style, right? But what's most important is how she put it, what's comfortable for mom is the best option. So with how courageous and bold she is relative to the majority of the female population when it comes to the birth and pregnancy stuff, the most important thing is I don't want you guys to feel like that you're not good enough if you don't live up to her method or her style, right? It's most important that you just get a healthy baby here into the world. Now, another thing I wanted to address is that I know we've done a lot of content on this type of thing lately, and it's not going to be forever. Worry, we'll be in other kinds of gravy too before you know it. But this is important to me, obviously, because I'm becoming a dad, and I just like to have this type of stuff on the books. Every once in a while, we'll probably even return to it someday, this type of subject, even when I'm not expecting a baby. But I did think it was kind of cool that last time Elise came on InnerVerse was, I think, October 18th in 2022. And that October 17th, 18th is actually our baby's due date. So that's quite a cool synchronicity that her last appearance was potentially on the birthday of our daughter. So beautiful. Hope you guys go check out Family Fungi and support James and Elise by picking up some of their products. That's a great idea. But there's lots of other good options out there that support the podcast, like Tippecanoe Herbs. Oh, I wanted to say too about the last time Elise was on. If you go look up that episode, she talks more about the psychedelic aspect of giving birth, which would have been fun to revisit in this talk, but we just needed to truncate that element for time because there were so many other things that we were fitting in. And I thought it was great to get sort of a to Z tactics, best practices, tips and tricks for, one of the most harrowing experiences potentially, but it's all in the perspective. It's all in how you frame it. You could frame it as this is super fun. Now, I'm sure there's still questions that moms might have out there. And she told me after we were done recording that she loves to talk about this stuff and she's very generous and giving with her time. So if you want to ask Elise some questions or run something by her, just reach out to her on Telegram, I think is the way to go. Elise Marie Frosch. You can find her in the InnerVerse chat. So if you're not already in the InnerVerse Telegram, regardless of if you wanted to message Elise, get in there. It's a great community. It's no bad vibes at all. Basically a search engine of enlightened humans where you can ask about all kinds of stuff or share things that you find to be cool and good vibes. Yeah, jump in there, message Elise if you got questions for her. You can also find her on Instagram at The Outpost Homestead or through the Family Fungi website, the contact form on there. I think that'll go to James, but he could still put you in touch. So all of that is in the mix. And I thought it was cool how she was talking about her friend, the unlicensed midwife. And I know that this audience is not probably the normal is not the right word, but the conditioned segment of society that would hear like unlicensed midwife, oh no, and start, biting their fingernails nervously. I just wanted to point out the definition of license. This is going back to the Webster's 1828 dictionary. It is an excess of liberty, exorbitant freedom, freedom abused or used in contempt of law or decorum. Now, that's not the only definition of license, but when you add that in, and then the other definition being like permission to act in the character of a doctor or a lawyer or etc. You want to act in the character of with permission from authority, or do you want to actually be the thing? Do you want, because there's think of the word licentious. There's so many things that you don't have permission to do under like natural law, but maybe if you get a license, you can do it. License basically means that you are allowed to do harm that you otherwise would not be allowed to do. I know that's probably not the way people would typically think of it, but it's basically the case. Because why else would you have a license? It's like a layer of protection legally, where if something goes wrong, it's not your fault. It's the institution that licensed you takes the liability. Typically something like that. So being an unlicensed midwife, to me, that's not a scary thing. That's more like, yeah, we're doing this the way that people would have done way before there was some kind of institution that controlled the thing. And I don't think you guys need to be reminded why the mainstream allopathic model is terrible, particularly in regards to birth, pregnancy, and what is done to children. Yeah. So I'm super excited about being a dad. I'm looking forward to all of the ups and downs of the process. Might be a little sleep deprived when the days come around, but we'll make it. Another thing that I thought was interesting, you guys know, I do biofield tuning, right? I wave tuning forks around in my living room while on a call with somebody in another state or country, and we look for where the stuck energy is at, the memories associated with it, and help them heal their body and restore life force to functionality. And one client that I had recently that was a really good session, really good. One of the first things that came up was that there was an entity attachment, which I don't like to deal with. I actually avoid, in a sense. I don't go out of my way to look for entity attachments. Maybe they're even there sometimes and I don't deal with them because there's other things I can do that are not in the realm of entities that are still helpful. But in this case, I found one and I was just like sure that it was an attachment that came about from some kind of anxiety medication or like antidepressant, something like that. But I didn't think that the client had been on them. I thought that it was the mother that was on them, maybe even while she was pregnant with him. So we probed into it, and long story short, it seems very likely that that was the case. And without getting into the weeds talking about spirit attachments, it is a thing that what you're ingesting has a spiritual energy to it. Whenever it's like some kind of natural food, while you know what the essence of that is, it's like the essence of a chicken, the essence of a deer, the essence of a leaf or what have you. But when it's some artificial compound, now you have some sort of weird construct energetically as well. And every form of material substance has an energetic aspect. I mean, it is energy. And thus there's a consciousness aspect. And I think this has a lot to do with where some of these bizarre overlays on people's life experience and personality come into play, and the identification, because all entity attachment or spirit possession, demonic influence is a misidentification. It is an accepting of an identity or a trait that is not true, that is not you. And, it's important to realize, I guess, overall, that the mother has this, you wouldn't necessarily think this intuitively, but the mother has the most to say in a child's development of their sense of power versus powerlessness. You'd think it would be dad, right? And confidence and power are not exactly the same thing. I think dad instills more confidence and the empowerment that comes from discipline, but just the sense of like, I can, I cannot. That is really, mom provides that energy and that foundation. And it's the question, like, I guess, of, are we always filtering things through the be careful, what if, be careful, what if type of vibe? Or is it like the fearless type of, I'm not broken, I can do this, the way that I would do it is the right way to do it type of vibe that Elise is providing to her children and to us just by modeling it for us here. So love seeing an empowered mother. Glad that we get to be friends, and someday I'll see the result of her boys and her daughter growing up with that type of power embodied by their mother. I think that's beautiful. And we'll wrap it up. I think this is a great episode. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget, check the show notes for all the ways you can support me and my wifey and our unborn baby, and support yourself at the same time. Typical New Herbs, Lotus Way. Probably saw me during the episode spraying my Lotus Way, flower essence elixir, aura mist, sacred awareness, hydrosol, great stuff. Biofield tuning, InnerVersePodcast.com, sound healing, /sound-healing. Just check the show notes. You get it. Okay, we're going to get out of here. See you guys on the next one. Thanks for being a listener. Thanks for being cool. Thanks for hanging out where the vibes are the best, which is this channel. And we'll see you next time.